Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Jeff. In case you're just now starting to get to know me, this is my cave of cool books. I've done a little moving around of stuff because I added an extra bookcase, which I'll show off later, probably as another filming location in a future video. But what I want to do today was just a couple of things. Recently, I've been doing some collaborations, joining some live streams, and I also have some really cool collaborations with other booktubers, other YouTubers coming up. Most of them next month in March that I want to announce and talk a little bit about today. And then I'm going to finish with a little book haul. I have, 5 new arrivals that came through Amazon Japan. Again, in Japan, I'm a little limited with where I can get my books. I did find the Colombo Corner Shop recently in January, and I've had a couple of cool batches of books I've got from there, and I'll be going back sometime next month to get some more. But for other things, I usually have to get new books when I'm over here, and I usually get them online. First, though, I want to talk about these collaborations. Let me talk about the recent ones. Last week, I was kindly invited to appear on Paul and Steve's 1-year anniversary celebration live stream at the Check Your Shelf channel. Paul and Steve run that channel. It's come up on a year for them, and they've done a great job. So I was happy to pop on there and chat a little bit, hang out with those guys. Plus Tim from Secret Fire Books was there for most of the stream, and also Levi from the Outlaw Levi Wallace joined us. So if you haven't had a chance, go over and check out their channel and that live chat. It was a lot of fun. We had some good, comments coming through there. Pretty funny stuff. Those guys are great. Paul and Steve should check out what they're doing. They deserve to have many more subscribers than they do right now. And wishing them the best for their 2nd year of their channel. It's coming up on my 1-year anniversary pretty soon at the end of next month, March 27th to be exact. I'm not sure what I'm going to do for it yet to ring in that 1st year of my BookTube-versary, but I'll think of something, I'm sure. Also, this last weekend, my good buddy David at Garage Geek kind of sent me a text and said, hey, do you feel like doing a live stream, an impromptu live stream again? And I was like, sure, why not? And we invited a few other people, and turns out that they were free. It was kind of a West Coast YouTuber extravaganza. We had Rob from SpaceArchives, Chadwick from Chadwick's Channel of Stuff, and Damien from Sleepy Reader, a longtime comic book and art YouTuber, a really cool guy, lives in Portland. And we had a great sit-down discussion showing off some of our new acquisitions or, things that we were interested in at the moment, etc. That was a lot of fun. Please go to David's channel, Garage Geek. I'll have a link down below. All of his videos are really well worth watching. He's a very eclectic and fun, friendly, cheerful presence online. And I think you'll enjoy this live stream if you like that kind of stuff. 5 geezers, I guess, 5 middle-aged guys jabbering away about cool stuff, cool books and comics. So please go check that out. Now, the next ones I'm going to talk about are not going to be live streams. They're going to be just recordings, discussions. I think because I want to focus in on the discussion first, and then I'll post them up as videos shortly after they're done. The first one that's coming up, and I'm really excited about this one, I invited Chris from Liminal Spaces, Nick from the Book Graveyard, to talk with me, do a kind of buddy read and discussion on Manly Wade Wellman's Worst Things Waiting collection, which I think won the 1975 World Fantasy Award and for Best Collection. And Manly Wade Wellman, I've talked about him several times on this channel. I have several, or a couple anyway, videos that I've recorded about him. And Worst Things Waiting was put out by Carcosa Press, which was established by Carl Edward Wagner and David Drake and another partner whose name escapes me at the moment. I will definitely remember that in time for our conversation. But everyone else there was quite busy, of course, doing their own thing. But they all have copies of this book. And several months ago, I said, hey, why don't we talk about this? And then I chose 5 stories, or I guess 4 stories in a novelette that we will read and discuss. And that will be on my channel. We're going to be recording that this coming weekend. And then I should hopefully have that up, before the weekend is out, or at least shortly thereafter. Again, a lot of these next ones I'm talking about will be hitting in March. So that'll be the kind of end of February, beginning of March. Should be a really great conversation. Already I've gotten a message from Chris at Liminal Spaces that he's enjoying these stories. So I've read all of these ones that we'll be talking about before, and many of the others in this edition. And it's Wellman is one of my absolute favorite writers, so I'm looking forward to talking about him. So something else that I'm really fond of is Doc Savage, classic pulp hero. And after doing a kind of discussion with Jim at Mystery and Mayhem, and John at the Robert E. Howard Foundation channel, Jim and I were on there along with the writer Molly Tanzer talking about Drell of Jory and by C.L. Moore and Robert E. Howard's Dark Agnes and Red Sonja stories, and how they, the two authors, their kind of mutual appreciation of each other and encouragement of each other, etc. That was a really fun experience to talk with John and the others about that. And I found out after that John was a big fan of pulp heroes and pulps in general. Of course, no surprise, since he liked, since he is big into Robert E. Howard. But we decided, him and Jim and I decided we'd talk about Doc Savage a little bit. And that'll be, I believe we're recording that on the 6th of March. So that should, again, I should have that recording edited together and up by the weekend, the first full weekend of March. And if that wasn't enough, about maybe by the second weekend of March, I will be doing a recording with Eric at the Paperback Warrior. And Eric wanted to talk about Louis L'Amour, but not a Louis L'Amour Western. We decided to tackle a thicker, more historical period swashbuckling adventure by L'Amour. And L'Amour wrote in many genres, not just Western. This is called Fair Blows the Wind. And this should be a pretty interesting read. And I'm really looking forward to talking with Eric. Eric has a fantastic channel and podcast. And I'm flattered that he wanted to partner up with me on something. So look for that coming about midway through March. And then finally, my final collaboration planned at the moment. I'm sure something else will pop up. My final collaboration will be with Sam at Captain Samuel's Sigils. And that will be on his channel, Captain Samuel's Sigils. And we'll be talking about kind of the first book in a 70s, I believe it's 70s, possibly 80s, kind of men's adventure / Western / supernatural series, the first book in that, and that is the Spectros series. Doc Spectros, apparently travels around the West. He's a wizard of sorts, and he travels around with his troop of assistants, some badass assistants, and they're tracking down an evil wizard that has put his Spectros's lady love in a state of kind of in a coma, or a state of permanent hypnosis, I guess. And then he's trying to track this wizard down to get him to undo his spell. And meantime, they're battling various weird creatures and supernatural beasties. So it sounds really cool mashup of kind of gothic, supernatural, and Western tropes. That's by the writer of the Spectros series is Paul Lederer. And I got an ebook version of that. I think Sam will maybe have a reprinted paperback version of that himself. I'm not quite sure what he's tracked down, but that'll probably be coming up towards the end of March. So again, very busy schedule for next month. I also hope to contribute to March on the Rails, a BookTube event, I believe created by Alan at Alan's Reads. And other co-hosts include Andreea at Infinite Text, Greg at Ghost Reader in the Sky, and I believe Rainer Reads is also involved. I'll have whoever is working on that or hosting that down below in the description. I don't think I have a lot of train related stuff, but I do have some. So I'm going to do a little reading for that. I'm not officially joining in on that event, but I do want to participate a little bit, show some support for that very cool BookTube event. I wanted to finish up with a little book haul. So thanks for hanging in there if you're just waiting to look at some books. So again, I'm continuing with my comic reading and grabbing a few graphic novels, collected editions, trade paperbacks, whatever you want to call them. I did a review earlier this month. Not a lot of people watched it, but I talked about All-Star Superman that I got through the DC Comics line. And again, I'm kind of new to DC Comics in a lot of ways, as well as comics in general. And I liked that experience of reading the compact comic edition. Not a lot of the ones that are currently out now that I'm interested in are easily available here in Japan. They seem to be sold out temporarily. I'll have to get some more of those when I can. But I was able to find and get Superman Birthright, which is by Mark Wald and Lionel Francis Yu and Jerry Alangulin are artists, and the colorist is Dave McCraig, and Comic Craft is the letterer. So this is telling Superman's origin story, which you'd think we'd have seen by now many times, but I've read really good things about this particular comic. And again, I believe this is a 12-issue run. It's around 296 pages or so of cool art and interesting story, tracking Superman's arrival on Earth as a baby and heading to Metropolis, meeting Lois Lane, etc. So looking forward to that. I'll probably also pull the trigger on soon. I think it's just coming out in a couple of days in March, early in March. Some kind of, I believe it's a Nightwing edition. I forgot the title. I'll put it up here on the screen maybe, but I'll be getting that one because that's available and it looks kind of interesting too. Switching from the compact comics line, which are the cheapest version of DC Comics, usually limited runs or real famous storylines that they've done in the past, to their DC Finest line, which are bigger size, big trade paper size, and heavy. This one's like 650 some pages. This is The Spectre, The Wrath of the Spectre. Now I believe Michael K. Vaughan mentioned this as in his top 10 of the DC's finest line so far. This collects stories by many different writers because it crosses quite a few years. It goes from the, I believe, 1966, all the way through with different writers and different artists to 1983. So a lot of issues in here. I believe there's 36 issues or something. And, I didn't know much about the Spectre before, but he had made appearances in many different comics as well as having his own. And he starts off with a little more classic style. I've been reading my way through the first issue, which is, it's pretty cool stuff, but I'm really looking forward to getting, to the later issues where the Spectre really goes to town, killing evildoers, melting their faces, melting their hands, cutting them in half with giant scissors, etc., taking on all sorts of criminal kingpins and bad guys. And that's a more notorious run. We have some Batman and the Spectre, looks like here, working together. Spectre frequently appeared with several other, in several other comics lines. This edition ends with a couple of issues of All-Star Squadron from the early 80s, which of course has many other superheroes in it, or at least heroes that might be familiar to DC Comics readers. Anyway, I'm a big fan of pulp heroes, The Shadow, or other kind of supernatural or supernatural adjacent kind of Dark Avengers, etc. So the Spectre seems right up my alley. The Spectre is some kind of, spirit entity that can become corporeal. It's attached to this detective, police detective James Corrigan, I believe is his name, and they, when he needs to, he can separate out into the Spectre, who can grow to giant size and is basically unkillable, super powerful, and pretty hard on, dishes out some tough justice to bad guys in the various stories. So I'm looking forward to reading that. That's quite a hefty tome, and I'll enjoy that. I recently, of course, reviewed and talked about the Golden Age Masterworks edition of Jurel of Jouari by C.L. Moore. And I saw that they had her Northwest Smith science fiction or fantasy science fiction stories, science fantasy stories. I also bought this new edition of her other famous hero character that appeared in Weird Tales, Northwest Smith, kind of a Han Solo predecessor, kind of roguish space adventurer, smuggler, mercenary type of guy. And I have a old Ace edition from the 80s, but I'm a little trepidatious about putting too much damage on that. I'm not sure how much longer that will stay intact. So I got this other Golden Age Masterworks edition of her Catherine Lucille Moore's Northwest of Earth. And there are various versions of this. I know some people have some really fancy, nice hardback editions, but I believe this has 10 or maybe 11 stories, because unlike the Ace edition of this that I have, this has the story Quest of the Starstone, which has Northwest Smith and Jurel of Jouari working together, which also appears in the Jurel of Jouari edition. So that story is kind of repeated. It's really more of a Northwest Smith story from his point of view than it is a Jurel story. So it's probably even better included in this edition. Okay, just a couple more. I got one more big book edition edited by Otto Penzler. This is the Big Book of Female Detectives. It's a little beat up. It's a used edition. It's I don't think there are very many that are new out, or at least not in a reasonable price. And unfortunately, this came from the UK, and the seller, the Amazon Marketplace seller, just wrapped it in straight up plastic. And, I'm sure this ding on the front was already there because it was used. It's not bad. The overall binding is fine. Inside is fine. But, a little scraped up on the edges and bent and increased, most likely from the flimsy packaging. But this is another massive tome. I have several over here that I've been collecting. I have another one on the way, the Big Book of Rogues and Villains. Can't wait to get my hands on that. Hopefully I'll have that in early March. The most complete collection of detective dames, gumshoe gals, and sultry sleuths ever assembled. Featuring unforgettable stories by Mary Roberts Reinhardt, Agatha Christie. There's a complete novel, a complete Tommy and Tuppence novel, the first one that she wrote, one of her earliest books, The Secret Adversary, which is kind of a spy yarn. Very fun. That's included here, a complete novel by Agatha Christie. Also, Sarah Paretsky, Laura Lippman, Sue Grafton, Joyce Carol Oates, and many others. More than 60 others, so that means there's about 65 stories in here, as well as the Agatha Christie novel. Glamorous gumshoes, debutante detectives, spinster sleuths, meet them all in Edgar Award-winning editor Otto Penzler's riveting and scintillating new anthology. Meet determined law-enforcing ladies and captivating criminal masterminds of all kinds, including a brilliant scientist who solves a murder using a single tea leaf, a master thief who leaves a calling card at the scene of the crime lest the servants be wrongly accused, a powerful woman who oversees a rogue band of vigilantes, a nosy detective best known for her outrageous hats who solves a murder using tropical fish, an X-rated sleuth who gets shanghaied by an unsavory character, a puritanical villainess hell-bent on avenging a perceived wrong, and last but not least, a crime-solving nun who unravels a complicated poisoning plot. So there's lots of great writers in here. I'll do a dedicated video about this at some stage in the future as part of my series covering these big books. Basically, it's broken down with Victorian and Edwardian British sleuths, before World War I, American female sleuths, the Golden Age, mid-century, bad girls, and, the modern era and bad girls. Now, the modern era will probably have a lot of more famous names from the, post mid-20th century, like Marcia Muller, Julie Smith, Sue Grafton, Faye Kellerman, Carolyn G. Hart, Max Allan Collins, who's not, of course, a female writer. There are several male writers in here as well. Sarah Paretsky, Nevada Barr, Linda Barnes, Ann Perry, Lawrence Block, Laura Littman, S.J. Roseanne, etc. Just tons and tons of cool mystery stories. So looking forward to that. Again, those, I'm not going to read that back to front. I mean, that would take me the rest of the year probably to do. I'll just, pull out little stories here and there. I like having those to kind of dip into as little palate cleansers between longer works that I'm reading. And another story collection, this one I've wanted for a long time and finally pulled the trigger on it, and that is Atomic Werewolves and Man-Eating Plants. The trade paperback edition, not the hardback edition, alas. It was about twice as much money to get that here in Japan, so I settled for this trade paper edition, but it matches the other ones I have in this Men's Adventure Library or Men's Adventure Journal editions. And as you might gather from the title, this collects Men's Adventure magazine stories that are all kind of out there, crazy, supernatural, animal attack, science fiction, killer robots, man-eating plants, werewolves, vampires, vampire bats, giant tarantulas, etc. And this is really cool. As always, it's been carefully curated by Bob Dice and Wyatt Doyle, who Wyatt especially is the one who puts the book together and for the layout. And Bob Dice has the massive, massive collection of actual men's adventure magazines that he can pull these stories from. And they start with, of course, a good, it's a couple of, Weird Tales profiles to show off some of the covers of Weird Tales. Weird Tales being kind of a precursor, I guess, to these kind of stories from the pulp era. And the men's adventure magazines took over from the pulps in the 50s, 60s, 70s. Maybe some of them lasted into the early 80s. So we start off with some really cool Weird Tales covers, including very famous ones like that. I believe that's a Margaret Brundage cover. What the main selling point of this book, of course, is the actual stories that they include. And they include quite a few stories, some from famous writers, right? And then each one they try to profile the magazine cover that it came from, plus another magazine. For example, we have art by Basil Agogos here. And we have the cover story, or the story here from Action. Most of these are from the 50s, with a few in the 60s. The Flag of the Stonewall Brigade by Ronald Admonson. And I'm not going to go through this in detail because I want to do a flip through later, but they have things like Vampires Ripped My Flesh, and they'll show the cover, and then quite often, reproduction of how the story originally appeared and looked in the original Men's Adventure magazine. There's a Manly Wade Wellman story in here, which is cool. I'm always a big fan of Manly Wade Wellman. We have an adventure cover here, and then we also have Cavalier, Song of the Slaves, and then we have again a reprinted layout, very striking and haunting, slaves being mistreated and coming back for their revenge. And, all sorts of really cool cover art plus stories. We have Rats in the Walls from H.P. Lovecraft in here. We have, robots chasing a guy and a gal through the swamp. Really interesting. Their bodies glowed with fire, etc. You get the idea. Very, very cool. I'm looking forward to, again, reading my way through this one. This one is you know, it's fairly lengthy. I think we're looking at, you know, almost 300 pages, but it's a little shorter than the hardback version, which probably includes an extra story and another gallery of art, cover art, etc. So that wraps up my small book haul and my video about kind of announcing my upcoming collaborations. Thanks as always for checking in. I've just passed the 700 subscriber mark. So I want to say a big thank you to anyone who regularly checks out my videos, likes, leaves a comment, and of course subscribes. I'm tickled pink that people actually pay attention to anything I have to say on here. So thank you for coming and checking things out. Please give me feedback anytime if you want to see something that I haven't talked about yet, or something you want me to go into more detail about. Please feel free to ask and leave a comment. Okay, thanks a bunch. As always, I will check you later in the next video. Take care.